Hello, everyone, and welcome to this month's edition of the Vision Island Advocacy Talks. Today, we're going to be joined by Joe Geraghty, who is going to tell us about his new book, Out of Sight. I'm Madeleine McNamara, and I work in advocacy at Vision Island, and I'm delighted to host this event today. Just before I introduce you to Joe, I just wanted to let you all know that this event is being recorded so that you will be able to watch it back later on our Vision Island YouTube channel, which you can also access through the Vision Island website at www.vi.ie. So, without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Joe Geraghty, who is being an advocate for vision impaired sport for I think pretty much your whole life, Joe, at this stage. He was instrumental in the foundation of what is now Vision Sports Ireland and is currently the president of the organisation. He has embarked on this huge project, which so much work must have gone into it, Joe, to write this amazing book, Out of Sight. So it's a pleasure to have you on Advocacy Talks today.
Oh, thank you, Madeleine. I was really looking forward to this, and lovely to have a chat with yourself. I'm sure we'll have a bit of fun as well, maybe.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's amazing. I'm so delighted to have you on. So tell us, what gave you the inspiration to write this book? Or maybe tell us a little bit about it.
Oh, yeah. Well, as you said there, I've had a lifetime of sports, going through the School for the Blind, St. Joseph's in Drumcondra, and then discovering that I was always mad into sport, every sport. And then discovering that I was a middle distance runner. I discovered that on the track out in St. Joseph's at about the age of my 15th birthday, actually. And what happened was I was in a football match in the school. I was sent off for kicking one of the priests too many times who was playing against us.
Oh dear.
So I went over to the track to sulk. And next thing I found, it was a 175-metre track. And next thing I found, I was just running and running and running out. So how do you do that? And I was at ease. There was no, breathing issues out of that, So
Yeah.
I kind of realised that maybe I'd be good at that. I didn't know where, when, how, but I loved running. And ever after, I would go out in the mornings, have a little run myself, even and long before the running boom that we now have and all the organised kind of stuff. But 1970s Ireland then, and the advent of international sport is actually. I'll come back now and then as to why where the book comes from out of this. Okay?
Yeah.
But just to mention in particular here, because in 1978, Jim Sherwin's Listen and See, some people may remember Jim Sherwin. Sadly, he passed away 2 years ago. But on that programme, they advertised an event in Scotland run by a lady called Anne Mackay. A lad called Martin Kelly, who may very well be a listener here, decided to go over there with 5 other guys, and he fell in love with Anne. She came to Ireland. She kind of gave us a little bit of direction, and off we went. And it was an event for blind and vision impaired people to compete against each other. And it was kind of what we did at school sports, except maybe a step up. We realised then that we were being invited to Paralympic Games, and we had to do a lot of work to get to these things, of course, but on a lot of fundraising. But yeah, so I realised that, I didn't realise recently, I knew for some time that when this generation of the 1970s kind of passed away into the next world, that the people of today probably wouldn't know much about how it all began. And I thought, well, I think it's important they do find it, because you learn, you don't want to be repeating history, you don't want to be making the same mistakes that we made. And we made so many, and at the same time, I kind of felt a book like this, Out of Sight, the stories of blind and vision impaired people in Ireland. I think this is of value to today's generation and to those coming through, because there's a lot to realise and learn in a book like this. And I'm hoping that it will bring a lot of new people into sport, because that's what I'm about. I mean, we started off with maybe a half dozen people going to Scotland. I would reckon I've seen about 6,000-7,000 people come through events like Mayfest and May Games. We used to call May Games years ago, and a lot of that wouldn't have happened had we not pushed the boat out and really pushed everyone. There wasn't much
Well,
money, but pushing things out. Yeah.
absolutely. And I mean that, so this book, as you say, it does highlight that whole history of how it all got started, and also though just the incredible mix and range of blind and vision impaired people who have taken part in sport over the years, and whether that be Paralympians or just people doing it for fun. But I guess it kind of just highlights the fact that you just did a huge amount of advocating there right at the start in order to get it going, Joe? I mean, what kind of got you involved at the beginning? What made you want to take on that whole mantle of starting this organization?
Well, the sport was in the blood, obviously, and there were talents there that I discovered as I got along. Okay, but some people who would know me know that I'm not exactly always smiling. I'm a serious guy as well, and I wasn't really happy with the way things were being organised in the early days. So I kind of would get in and like somebody would say, "Oh, there's an event on." Like for example, the first entry into European sports was somebody said at an event, and we went to our then governing body. We're not going to criticise, we didn't really understand us very much, and they said, "Oh, well, we wouldn't have the money for that, like But the hell with you, we'll go and do it ourselves." So we did. I wrote to Germany at the time, it was the European Championship, and just said, "Listen, guys, we're on our way over. Will you welcome us?" We'd love you to come over. That was without any government funding, anything at all. And
Wow.
but eventually people started coming on board, realising. I wasn't happy that we were going to events in Britain and we were coming back and we were like basically joining somebody else's party, but not hosting a party in Ireland ourselves. So again, I wrote to the then governing body. Now they said they knew very little about sport. They were just trying to help us out. And I kind of said, "Listen, guys, we need to do something here ourselves." In this occasion, because we were coming into the International Year of the Disabled, they said, "Love to do it." So. But we had battles to do. We and we had a lot of battles. We had a lot of fundraising. But that's and then one other story. I competed in Paralympics in New York in '84, but the selection system was so bad at the time, and maybe that's how I got on the team actually. But it was so bad at the time that I said, "Look, guys, I'm going to sort out those standards with a few experts." But once I do that, I have to stand back from the sport. So I had to stand back from the sport, which wasn't a big problem for me.
So you had to stop competing yourself then because you were then involved, as you say, in the whole
I was
selection process.
I could.
And
I was going to be a conflict of interest, that I would actually be
yes,
competing and
and
picking myself for teams.
was that selection process, just something that on an Irish level, or was it on a more international level in the sense that, how did that work? Was it just what the Irish criteria was for selection?
Yes, it was at that time. There were no basically, you might have a board or a committee or whatever, and they would actually select the team, and they wouldn't
Yeah.
really know much about who was who, but they would have some idea, but they wouldn't be fully. So what I did was I sat around. I went to what's now Athletics Ireland, was BLE at the time, and I got them on board, and I sat in and chaired the meetings with them and other people from the schools for the blind here, Marion and St. Joseph's, who would have been big players back then. And we set about and we set standards, A and B standards. Now, A and B standards are exactly what you use nowadays internationally. We didn't invent the A and B standard, but we actually adopted them here at a time when it was essential. Otherwise, because there's going to be war. Every time a team was selected, you could wait for the war afterwards,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's amazing, Joe, because I mean, I don't want to kind of hazard still your age at the moment, but I mean, you were quite a young man, presumably at that time, making your
I'm
way in the
still a young
world.
man.
Exactly, you were a young man making your way in the world, holding down a job. I don't know
Yeah.
whether you were married at that point, or was that before the
It,
advent of that amazing relationship you have now? I don't know.
yeah.
But I just think it's just a testament to you in the sense that you just got up and you saw a need for something. You saw that a system wasn't working, and you went about bringing people together to fix it. And I just think that's a real testament to you. It's a real credit that you had that gumption and to get on and do that. I think it just sort of shows to everybody that there's no reason why people can't do that. If Joe can do it, not saying you're doing an amazing man, but if people like Joe can do it, then other people, we all can have some part in taking part in these. And I think it shows the power of the advocacy that you did, that you had to get a message out to make the case, I suppose, for what was needed.
Yeah, we had to fight for everything, and whether we like it or not, to this day, we will always have another fight ahead of us. Okay, now we can remain great friends, and I have to say I've remained great friends with the people that I used to run them out of meetings almost, like,
Oh dear.
and we're very good friends, and the work that was done back then is very much appreciated. So it wasn't as if, I mean, yeah, um, I think that's one thing that we have. We're a long way in Ireland from getting to where we'd like to go with uh, the status of vision impairment, where we become almost invisible, that nobody needs to be kind of holding our hand. And
Mm.
we've a long way to go. We need to understand that ourselves, and I think but yet it needs to start in the education system, build up from there. It may have to start at primary school where there's a whole lot more
Yeah,
thought. Right.
yeah.
But
Well, I mean, I
we have a
think
good bit to go, yeah.
I think that's something that's interesting. There's obviously a lot has changed over the years. I mean, I'm a product in the same way that you are a product of that kind of special school, but for me in the UK and for you here in Ireland, and whereas that's all gone now, pretty much, and it's all
Mm.
integration. So, how do you see that the access to sport has changed over the years? Do you
Yeah,
think that?
I mean, I didn't send my children, and I could have. I've Grania myself. Grania was a wife, and you mentioned her there briefly
Yes.
earlier. Of course, she is the key to everything that happens in my home, and lovely woman, and of course, won't go into the rest. But you know yourself, and you know Grania, and
Yeah.
yeah, the one thing about the schools, and I think it's worth saying, is that they get a hard time nowadays. I wouldn't have sent my children to any of the schools here, even though they had a vision impairment. Um, and they have moved on a long way since where when I was at St. Joseph's. That's partly the boarding school concept I didn't like. Partly, we won't go into it, but part of it's the way it was back in the 1960s and 70s. You're a bit younger than me, Madeline, so you can talk about the 80s. But the one thing I want to say about the schools, okay, and it's very clear in the Outlaw Sight book, is that they were a mecca for sports people. You had
Mm,
like no other schools in Ireland back in the 1960s had swimming pools and running tracks and modern sports hall type of things, So
mm,
they were the place to go, and so all of our early high performance people came from the schools. Um,
mm.
Now moved on, maybe the mid 90s, maybe if we began to move. I'm not sure about the exact years, but certainly I'd left school by then, and it's much more open, and it's harder for children nowadays with vision impairment to actually get the same treatment that they would have
Yeah.
got in
Yeah.
the blind schools. But I'm referring now to sports, okay? And
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah. And
yeah,
I would agree because I mean, just from my experience, my siblings were fully sighted and went to regular school, and I was at the sporting school, and yeah, had all these facilities, access to running tracks and a swimming pool, and all sorts of other things that they didn't have. So it was interesting. I think that has changed, and I think we would probably most of us would be happy now that we're living in a world where it's people who with vision impairments are integrated into regular schools. But it does I think it is more challenging. I think that access to
mm.
sport to enable people to participate within that mainstream setting.
There was
Um,
an interesting one, Madeline, and during just before the Paralympics, Channel 4 ran a program in the UK based on the UK. But the fact of the matter was that only 1 in 4 disabled people going to mainstream school are actually doing sports. That's a
mm.
terribly low figure, and I would say it's not that dissimilar in Ireland. If anything, it might be even lower. So yeah. Anyway, that's so maybe that is a big difference, and we have to work on that. We have to find ways of solving that.
I don't remember who the name of the person, but in your book, there's one of the people who was for a while living in Canada, I think, and told a story about how well and that they went to a regular school in Canada, and that the adaptations and how they were integrated at that point.
That's
And that
right.
was good way
I'll,
back. I thought that was
mm,
amazing. That
that was
they,
yeah, kind of yeah. Yeah, sorry, yeah. That was
Yeah.
Alberta in Canada. That was Raheem Nazarali, okay, whose his parents, who were running a restaurant in Ireland, decided to head back to meet some relations in Canada. And Raheem went to a mainstream school, but that mainstream school went way out of their way to help out. Well, I shouldn't say way out of their way. They did something that probably should be done. They actually had people on the hockey court, they played ice hockey, they played they, of
Wow.
course, they did rugby, did various sports, and there
Mm.
was always somebody at the sideline or near Raheem to tell him where to go or to guide him to the ball or to the whatever, And then
Yeah.
it was just an interesting way of integrating. It's not saying it's the only way or the best way, but he came back home, and he went back into the kind of shall we say, the boarding school element again, and he couldn't believe it. Then when we went into secondary school, that they weren't even playing sports in there, nor had they the supports to give him any. He almost fell out of sport over it. Thankfully, he went on to be a Paralympian and a great judo player.
Uh-huh. Yeah, no, it's amazing. But I think this is where now, the whole work that you did and are still doing in terms of Vision Sports Ireland sort of comes into play, I guess, and has a huge role in ensuring that our youngsters in the schools and beyond, into adulthood can kind of participate in sport. So, maybe tell us a little bit about that and where you see that going into the future.
Yeah, well, vision sports are basically they should be in on the whole map of and within the whole landscape of sport in Ireland. Vision sport should be the conduit and the centre point for sport here. It is to a degree, but again, it's a work in progress. Okay, now Vision Sports made a very good move, and so did Vision Ireland, of course, in the merge. Okay, there was a merge of where now Vision Sports Ireland is a subsidiary of Vision Ireland, and while it has its own identity, it is part of Vision Ireland. Vision Ireland has a much greater, shall we say, database of names and numbers than Vision Sports could ever access. So really, when somebody comes in through one of the ECLOs in one of the hospitals, the childcare nurses in the various hospitals, they'll kind of get a little bit of information about visions, about the sports available, and while they'll be encouraged to get involved in the community, it'll be suggested to them to link in with Vision Sport, and hopefully some of them might be told to go and read this book here as well, out of sight. So I see
Absolutely.
that. I see it has to begin at grass down at the bottom with the babies, with the children, and I think Vision Ireland have that access with the
Mm.
children's unit as well in Limerick, but we have to go through the ages here. Vision, a lot of, I could be wrong on these figures, but I think 60% of blind and vision impaired people are over the age of 60. Maybe Madeline, you'd be more in tune with that figure. But I mean, we have to look at all generations, and we have to look at the person who was driving a car at 55, who by
Mm.
65, the sight was losing. They loved their golf, they played their golf every week, and but now they found they weren't interested anymore because they couldn't find the ball on the fairway. Never
Yeah.
mind never mind down in the middle of a lake or something. But
Yeah.
so we Vision Ireland know all of Vision Sports Ireland have all that information. We have the experts there, so that's where that goes. Moving on though, I think it's in the book as well. It was Pádraig Keeley kind of started the conversation in the book. Pádraig is the manager of Vision Sports Ireland, and he's supported by Aaron Mullenniff, who also is a great man for the ideas. But I think what Pádraig was starting to talk about was the fact that ultimately um, vision impaired people should really be practicing their sport and leisure activities through the governing bodies. Like, if they're a swimmer, they should be really going back to Swim Ireland, or if they're a walker, they should
Mm.
be going to the various walks, hill walks that are, in the community.
Yeah.
But I would add to that, and Pádraig would agree, that that's really important. That probably is the way forward. Okay, but look, things change, but that looks to be the way forward. But can I just say one thing there on that? It doesn't mean that you wouldn't have a Mayfest, which is the annual carnival of sports. It doesn't mean you wouldn't have capabilities. It doesn't mean that you wouldn't have zero limits. They would be there, and that would be where people would meet their peers. Because as much as you go out there and practice your sport, you'll always want to come back and discuss things with your blind and vision impaired friends or whatever.
So is what you're saying that you think moving forward, because at the moment we have, people who are blind and vision impaired would compete, if you like, at a competitive level would be the Paralympics and other things like that. And do you think that should continue, or do you think that in the future it should be possible for people who are blind and vision impaired to compete in the regular kind of? I know some have
Mm,
competed in the sort of the regular Olympics, but do you think that's the way
mm.
forward for competitive? Or, there are two things, I guess. There's
There
competitive
are.
sport and there's sport for the leisure and for health and all the rest of it. I mean, and I can't see why on that side, in terms of the leisure side, that people can't compete, be involved in their local communities with other, able-bodied people. So, what's your thought there?
Yeah, no, and that is a continuation of what we're talking about, what I should have been talking about there, which is, yes, a blind or vision impaired person, particularly somebody who's totally blind, okay, can only compete with, sorry, yeah, can only be, they will reach a point where they can compete in open competition. This at the high, I will do the high performance first. They can only compete at the highest level against people of their disability, whether it's total blindness or there are two other levels of partially sighted in high performance, most high performance sports. And so if that sport is in the Paralympics or in some other world championship level, that's where that is the ultimate of where you can compete. And they probably, as a totally blind person, for example, probably couldn't compete against, say, a totally blind woman couldn't compete against Rashida Adaleki, okay, because
Mm.
of the guide system and various things. Because the person who would be running with the blind person would have to be faster than Rashida Adaleki in the first place. And
Yes.
she's the Irish champion, so and she's probably going to be an Olympic champion. So how are you going to do that?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
therefore, the blind person, the totally blind person, is right to go and compete in Paralympics, etc. As
Mm.
you say, 99.5%. There's 42 people in Ireland since 1980 who've competed at Paralympic Games. That's
Wow.
probably out of approval, as I said earlier, 6,000 or 7,000 people, over those years. So
Yeah.
I'm not going to go into the percentage, but certainly less than 99, less than 1%. It's probably less than 0.01%. Um,
Mm-mm.
so get involved in the community, compete in the community if depending on what the sport is and what the adaptation is, what your ability is and what your sight is, but compete and play in the community and enjoy your sports and enjoy the journey. Try 10 or 20 sports, whatever it is you like, whatever it is, you'll find something that fits in for you, whether it's tiddlywinks or competing racing against Jason Smith, and then do that, and then come back a few times a year maybe, and meet people who maybe you met along the way, or your also family will want to do that anyway. Meet people with similar disabilities, and then at the events I mentioned earlier, and then you'll have the best of both worlds and enjoy it.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It is just about people being involved and enjoying it and getting the most out of sport in the same way that everyone else can. And I think Vision Sports Ireland is doing huge work in order to, reach out and work with local sports clubs of all types, whether that be athletics or swimming or whatever, in order to give them that sort of awareness training of how to support somebody who's blind or vision impaired to participate with their community. And I think that's a huge part of it, isn't it? So that's that whole,
It
again, the
is, yeah.
advocacy piece in terms of making people aware that just because you can't see very well doesn't mean you can't run or swim or golf or play chess or all of those other things that people do. It's just that we need that awareness of maybe small adaptations that need to happen in order to enable people to participate. So I think it's amazing.
Look,
Um,
yeah, yeah. You know yourself, Madeline, and a lot of listeners here will know that sometimes you only need very minor adaptations. It
yeah,
might be just something like a personal yellow line being cut somewhere or other, like, a little tape here and there, and maybe change it in sport, changing the colour of the tennis ball into a more, and that has been done, into a
okay,
more visible version. and
Yeah.
tactile things. When you're showing somebody how to play a sport, say VI rugby, maybe having a kind of a model of what a rugby pitch is like, and so on. And once that's all got over and the concept is understood, the sky is the limit for blind and visually impaired people. And one other thing you were saying, like, Vision Sports Ireland are probably light years ahead of the other governing bodies in this country. But Vision Sports Ireland are going to have the respect they should be getting within, the NGB framework. And so, if they were to listen to Aaron and Pádraig and the various people in Vision Sports Ireland, and they can listen to me as well. They mightn't get a word in, but
no.
But if they could listen to us, because we get all these bandied words like inclusion and all the rest. Okay, I don't use it that much, by the way, because I just don't understand half of what it's about. But what I do understand is that when we get at it, when blind and vision impaired people get out there and get stuck into it, we're able to do so much more than the general public believe we can do. So in sport, we need the governing bodies to come on board, listen to Pádraig and the crew, and start getting more involved, not trying to win awards for inclusion or whatever, but actually maybe win the award of personally coaching and bringing a blind and vision impaired person to whatever level that person wants to be.
And what they need to do as well is read your book, Joe. And then they'll find all about all the amazing...
Available in all formats.
I was going to say that. Available in all formats. I think I was delighted to see there was Braille on the cover of that book, which is lovely. So, yeah.
And another little trick at the back, by the way. Yeah, a little trick at the back, which is subtle, which is you can hand that book to a blind person or partially sighted person and say, look at the back of that book there. That'll bring you to the Out of Sight website, and you get all the information you want about the book before you go and listen to it. It's I should say it's a QR code which is tactile at the back of the book, which, as I say, it has to be explained now, but it's there. Yeah. No, it's accessible.
Well, you see, I think maybe you're chatting the way that all of those now. It was an easy little thing to just raise it up on the back of the book, and if we could make that, my next advocacy job was going to be making that recognised as the symbol for where there's a QR code on something, that it'll be a little raised up square.
And come here, will you credit it to my wife, Gran? You can suggest it to me.
I will. I think it's a brilliant idea. So so you can absolutely. The book is available in loads of bookshops. I've seen it in my local bookshop and all over. It's available through Bookshare, isn't it, with Vision Island?
Yes, it is.
In all sorts of versions,
There's
whether that be
Braille through child. Well, not through child vision. Actually, if you just, I'll come back to where you go. Have you a minute or two? Yeah, left.
Sorry,
have we a minute or so left here?
No, you can go ahead. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So yes, it's Child Vision kindly created a Braille version of the book for us. Okay, so if you're looking for that version, you contact me directly through Out of Sight 2024 at gmail.com. Out of Sight 2024 at gmail.com. And as you rightly said there, Bookshare, the book is available on Bookshare, and it's also, as you said, available in shops, but it's also available through the outofsight.ie website. That's outofsight.ie website. And one final thing, back to Vision Sports, and they have it in their online shop as well.
Fantastic. So you've no excuse for not to read it. It's everywhere. I'll tell you.
Well, I'll be asking questions when I meet you.
It's a great read. I have to say, I really did enjoy it and learn so much, because I wasn't aware of all of the various sports people that have done such amazing achievements, representing Ireland over the years. So I think it's absolutely fantastic. Well, look, Joe, it's been amazing to talk to you. And I have to say, just a fantastic achievement of all the things you've done, but this book, just the amount of work that must have gone into the interviewing that you did of all the participants in the book.
I loved it, Madeline. Yeah.
I can imagine you did. But lots of chats over cups of tea and coffee, and I think it would have been an amazing experience to do for you, was it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, meeting people I hadn't met for 20 years, etc., and just good fun. And as I said in the acknowledgements, there's lots of stories didn't go into the book.
I can imagine. I can imagine. I can imagine. Absolutely. Lots of fun had around the
Lots of
place on
fun
the
had.
edges there.
Oh, totally. But that's
Definitely.
what we were about. We loved what we were doing, and we were competitive. As I said about myself, even I'm great fun, but I can be serious if you were to race me maybe not at my age now, but if you raced me a few years back in any
Yeah.
distance, there'd be no smiling for a few minutes. I can assure you.
Yes, you're serious, but you're very competitive, and that's the thing. You
Yeah,
take
yeah,
that seriously,
yeah.
which is a good thing. Absolutely. Well, honestly,
But
Joe, it's been absolutely a pleasure talking to you. And please, everyone, if you can, read Joe's book, Out of Sight. And if you want to listen back to this, you can. As I mentioned before, it's on our YouTube channel, Vision Island YouTube channel, and also you can access that through our website at www.vi.ie. So thank you very much, and hopefully we'll get to see you all next month. Bye for now.